Lamplight presents The Flowers of the Field, Part 2, by Sarah Harrison. Narrated by Gabrielle Glaister. Chapter 11. Major Jack Kingsley, officer commanding B Company, the 1st Battalion Kentish Light Infantry, led his men into the communication trench at 1900 hours, the night before Christmas Eve, 1914. He was followed by his second-in-command, Captain William Massey, and the 4 platoons with their respective commanders arriving at 20-minute intervals. The whole of the 1st Battalion had been in rest camp at Wiesegelm, near the Ypres salient, for a week. It was galling to have to return to the front-line trenches just before the festive season, but somebody had to mind the shop, and anyway, no one entertained very high hopes of Christmas this year. B and D companies were to go right up, while A and C stayed back in the reserve trenches. Of the two alternatives, the former was generally considered preferable. If you had to be at the front, you might as well be right in there, swinging, instead of hanging about in the background, suffering boredom on top of all the other hardships of trench life. You could as easily be caught by a shell or mortar in reserve as in the front line. You were just a sitting duck. Jack not only understood perfectly the mood of his men, but shared it. They felt a weary fatalism, which had been, if anything, deepened by a few days in rest camp, where the routine was designed to prevent any easing up of military discipline. Too much freedom, it was firmly believed, would undermine the automatic acceptance of this discipline. So the term rest meant merely not being in danger of one's life. Every day they followed the same routine. Each morning there was roll call, inspection of arms, equipment and quarters, baths, delousing and head inspection, lengthy and rigorous drill, and in the afternoon organised games, rugby and cricket for the officers, football for the men. Even the supposedly free evenings were frequently taken up with divisional concerts, attendance at which was more or less obligatory. One did at least get more sleep, but in the case of the men even this benefit was heavily qualified, since the rate paid to civilians for a private's billet was a mere 21 centimes. This provided at best a hard, narrow pallet, at worst a place in the hay in some barn or loft, and both were usually shared. Still, when they had set out from Wiesegelm 5 miles and 1 hour ago, they had been relatively both refreshed and purged, with shorn heads and skin.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?